Hey, True Believers, England Teen here with another episode of Really That Bad. And this time, as you can see by the thumbnail, we're asking, is Cyberfrog really that bad? No, not the new one, not the one that just came out, Blood and Honey and all that. This is the original Harris miniseries. It was commissioned, thank you very much, Tim Bourne, for commissioning this video. And if you would like to commission a video, just go on over to Ko-Fi, links in the description below, and pick whatever topic you want. We got bad comic beatdowns, really that bad, like the one you're about to watch. We got comic book origins, all sorts of stuff. You pick the topic, you pick the subject, we'll get the video out to you ASAP. And I am having fun doing this. You guys can come up with some strange and sometimes very obscure things to read. I've got some French comics coming up here soon. Yay! Well, anyway, once again, thank you very much to Tim Bourne for commissioning this, and let's get on with Cyberfrog from Harris Comics. Okay, so as always, we start with a cover. It's not bad. It's a poster cover. If you like the character, you should like this. I think it's a little cluttered. I'm not someone who likes a lot of writing. This is telling us the first spine-shattering issue, but so does the number one. Puts first spine-shattering issue over Cyberfrog, and it's out of the way of the art. It would do a lot better, I think. The gore cover, considering the character, considering what you're about to see, it's accurate to the character. I've got to give it. The bite me on the back there, it works to tell you his attitude. The only problem is that whole strip. See the bizarre Deathfly, which 90s names. It's not Ethan's fault because everybody was out to trademark every name they could at the time, so you got some really bad names for characters in the 90s. And this is a little bit more like it. You don't have a lot of stuff cluttering up the art. This one doesn't have the colors that the first one had, but at least you get a clear picture of Cyberfrog himself. It's not the gore picture, so it could attract anyone. And it might actually interest the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crowd. I do like this cover. The only thing I would improve is just the brightness in the way that the first cover popped. Story and art, Ethan Van Sciver, man. You don't have anybody else to hide behind, and you don't have anyone else to blame for what's about to happen when you open the book and start reading. All right, so let's get through issue number one. It starts off with a mugging. And Cyberfrog he says something about a Cyberfrog sense anyway, and it takes him to all sorts of crimes. And there's a problem here. First of all, it's the art. Let's talk about the art because that's obviously Ethan Van Sciver is a very good artist. That is something universal. Even people who don't like Ethan Van Sciver agree that he's a good artist. This is young Ethan Van Sciver. He has not found his style yet. He's still working on it. You could tell some of the faces really come off like slice of life comics do. It's just not right. There's something off. When you'll see it if you compare this art style to some of his newer stuff, which is sad because what this book really should be leaning on is the art because the writing is not there. Part of the problem is it doesn't take itself serious. Now, and by that, look, Cyberfrog doesn't take itself serious, and that's just something you should understand. This is not to be taken seriously. Unfortunately, though, there's a joke in every panel, and it comes off as forced rather than funny. For an example, something that actually made me laugh was there's a scene where the muggers start shooting at Ethan Van Sciver. They start shooting at Cyberfrog, and he says their answer to everything is bullets. They would be great on a debate team, and I actually kind of giggled at that. I like that joke. But then the next panel, there's 3 word balloons explaining why that's funny, and it's like it killed the joke flat and became forced. I would suggest it's a writing course, considering what I hear a lot about Blood Honey. I have no opinion on Blood and Honey. I haven't read it yet, but what I've heard is the writing is the weak spot. So definitely take a course or hire a writer for the dialogue or something like that. Plot it out, and that's what Stan Lee did, because that is a problem. all throughout the book. It comes off as forced humor rather than humor that comes from the characters themselves. Every character in here doesn't sound like a different person. They sound like Ethan Van Sciver. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Woody Allen's made an entire career of movies basically writing himself into everything. Issue number 2. This may be my favorite cover for Cyberfrog. It's got humor and it's got that dynamic pose. It's got the colors are popping. Yeah, I dig it. This one comes off as a little bit cluttered to me, looking through Deathfly's legs rather than perhaps maybe seeing his face, something a little larger for Cyberfrog to be fighting in. It looks a little bit more cluttered than I think this cover should be. A funny thing happened on the way to issue number 2. It seemed like the first half and the second half were written at different periods. Because everything I said about the first issue could be said about the first half of this book. It's kind of odd. Now, there are still problems with it. Most of it stems from the writing. And let's get something straight. I'm not a huge fan of certain books from the 90s anyway. A lot of the Image books I thought sucked because the writing was so horrible in them. And some of the big ones, Youngblood definitely sucked. I didn't care for Spawn for a while because I just thought the writing was weak. Art was beautiful, but the writing was weak. Jim Lee has admitted he's not an a writer. You know, he could draw the book and it looked good. But yeah, so I had a problem with that as well. This book looks just as good as many of the 90s books you would have found back then. It does suffer the same problem. Nobody cares about anybody, therefore why should we care about anybody? We have to have something to emotionally attach to for the actions to actually mean something. And unfortunately, you don't really get that. There's a girl here described, okay, well, she's only 16. You know, that's the closest you come to anybody that you're going to care about. And she's in the book for a while. But otherwise, we're just seeing, okay, I'm going to kill you now. All right, bye. Have a good day. Bye-bye now. There's potential here, though, when you're reading this. The one biggest flaw is the bad guy, Deathfly, stops the story dead to tell his origin. It's like, oh, goodness, this is out of place. This is just, like, it would have been better to show and not tell. Like, maybe open the book with the origin or something. Here we go. You remember what I said about the cover of issue number 2 with Deathfly? And I like this one a lot better. That's a nice action comic cover. Very dynamic. Really cool. Deathfly by Night, issue number 3. I gotta say, I kind of like the little play on words. Death flies by night, death fly by night. Okay, it works. As a matter of fact, most of this book kind of works. Once again, everybody sounds like the same person, and I understand that's hard to do. I have a hard time with dialogue. I've admitted I have a hard time with dialogue. I was asked, would you write a comic book? Because I've got a few plots going in my head, but I mentioned I would probably try to find help with the dialogue because that's where I know that's where I'm weak. I do the same thing as Ethan does right here. Everybody would sound like me, rather than trying to find an individual voice. Some people can nail it, man, and that's awesome. Some people can't. Hey, look, I love Kevin Smith movies, but you know what? Everybody sounds like Kevin Smith in those films. It doesn't mean they're bad. It's just the way it is. This works a little bit more than the last issues because it's mostly fight scenes, so the dialogue does come off as witty banter. But if you read it out loud without looking, you'd be hard-pressed to be able to tell who is who. And once again, this is easily solved. Take a couple of writing courses and boom, you've got yourself a book. You've got yourself something. Second thing I would say at this point, we have no idea who Cyberfrog really is. However, there's some awesomeness that's touched upon here. He does not give a crap about anybody, and yet he feels compelled to save them. And he even says, well, this goes against my entire nature. Holy Toledo, if that was actually explored, this would be really good. That is a theme I think that this book should have been about. As a matter of fact, I think that's a question that should have been asked before the story was written. What is this about? You could say, well, it's about a frog that kills people who does bad. You know, this one, you know, but that's the plot. I'm talking about characters. I'm talking about the themes and such like that. I think that's something that's missing from this book as well. However, once again, I do believe that issue 3 stands above issue 2 and 1. Another poster cover. That's understandable. I think there's a missed opportunity to have more of a Plastic Man thing going on with the tongue filling the bottom of the page. However, I think, you know, the words are at the bottom. That's it. It's not, nothing's obstructing the art. Overall, it works. Issue number 4, the finale, takes them to hell, and it suffers the same stuff. Shockroach and all those people go away until the very last page. So it's almost like, hey, I'm building up a subplot, but not really following through. It's going to be in a whole different miniseries. They go to hell. They fight. There's no real stakes to it. And here's something. I understand banter during a fight. Robin used to do it. Spider-Man's famous for it. But when things got bad, they got worried. And there's nothing like that here. If they're not worried, why should we be worried for them? There's no sense of tension or anything. At no time do you believe that Cyberfrog's going to lose. There's no real stakes to anything that's happening. It's almost like, okay, you know, just want to show it. Want to draw some pretty pictures, you know, put some words to it. Doesn't matter really who's who or who's saying it. Once again, read it out loud. You'll be hard-pressed to figure out what character's saying what. But once again, I understand. The dialogue is tough. I'm kind of spinning wheels. I'm saying the same thing from issue to issue because that's the big problem. The art has gotten better, and I actually think the writing gets a little bit better from issue to issue. So, you know, there is improvement. One thing that I thought was weird was when they went to hell, Dragonfly, or Deathfly, excuse me, his boss doesn't help out at all. He just watches. So why go to hell at all? It's just like, hey, you're going to take out my little minion? Have fun. And once again, even this issue touches upon some ideas that I think had they been expanded upon, it would have just been made so much better. Why is Deathfly so important to this guy that he's got to repower him to send him back out, yet not important enough to defend him when they're actually in hell fighting next to the boss of hell or whatever his name is? And that's, once again, like I said, if the questions were asked why, like what are the motivations, why are they doing this, why are they doing that, you could have gotten a much deeper and better miniseries out of it. But the series is called Really That Bad, so I have to answer the question, is it really that bad? Plus, I have to tell you why, because not to would be kind of pussy, and I'm just not that way. So the reason why I do think it is a bad book, I've told you before, the writing is off. The art is not yet to the point where we could ignore the writing. Here's something you could say right now. As far as the art is concerned, even today, now you could get better looking Cyberfrog. So it's not like you could go, oh, wow, I bought it for the art. No, you don't have to buy this book for the art. You can find better Cyberfrog art online that was created in the last 2 years. So, sorry. I think that it's got potential, though. The writing is horrible, but dude, if you just hire a writer, you've got some excellent themes here to explore. If you found a writing partner, somebody you trusted to say, well, this is where I want to go, this is why I believe they're doing what they're doing, and they laid down some excellent words for your plot there and brought out the motivation a little bit more, I think that this would be more than just a cash cow. Seriously. I see big potential in Cyberfrog from the 1990s. That's silly to say, but there you go. So there you go, guys. I can't recommend it, but what about you? Have you read it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with me that it's a mindless action book, therefore it's good or bad, and whatever you take? I mean, everybody's got different opinions. Let me hear yours in the comments below. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you haven't done it already. Make sure the notifications are set on all. And if you don't mind helping out the channel, go on over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi. Links in the description below. Drop $1 in the till. Helps keep the lights on here, trying to make a living doing this. And don't forget, you can commission your own video, much like this one. And just go on over to Ko-Fi, links in the description below, and pick whatever topic, pick whatever subject, and we'll get the video out to you ASAP. Like, thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.